Good morning out there, traders. It is May 24th, 2024. Welcome to the Apteros Daily Market Insight. Let's dive into what happened yesterday. So, kind of an exciting day yesterday. We had the FOMC stuff, obviously the prior day before. Overnight session was out here, kind of whenever we were prepping. And I was discussing, out in these neutral areas here, this was kind of like a freelance zone. So, it's a very neutral zone out here. And then as we pulled back, that's whenever we were discussing the line in the sand areas. So what ended up happening is we really didn't get a good inflection from any of the neutral zones, right? So no real opportunity for the bulls there, along with what we were planning, essentially with scenario one being the holdup of this zone. Then we got into this area here, it got a little choppy, and no real great inflections, but definitely a turn here for scenario one, and that just doesn't work out. This market just screams right down through it, giving us the inclination now that we're going to be working in between some line in the sand area, in between this area here. And then we have a bunch of opportunity throughout the morning, really just getting on board with the downside, line in the sand here for the bulls, and pretty much having that release all the way back up into our main line in the sand. And then this, after a bullish line in the sand fails, it becomes bearish, right? So now that the Bears, at pretty much at this point on, have control of this line in the sand, we get right back up into here and we get a great opportunity on the short side for that one, right back into this line in the sand. And of course, that was really what I was focused on in the DMI. This extension down here, not necessarily a planned part of the DMI. This was just part of what happened yesterday, as far as I'm concerned, part of the randomness of the market, if you will. So in terms of planning and prep, the this section here was really more or less the main opportunities for the session, according to the DMI, along with scenario two on the downside and using this lower bullish zone that we talked about holding up as well from these lows here and then from this area here. So that really was kind of the main opportunity according to the DMI. So now taking a look at today, it's a pretty dissonant picture overall, and it could get worse depending on how things kind of play out here. But essentially, what we have going on is this area is dissonant between a couple of different time frames. We have a higher time frame with a bullish idea down here. We have multiple time frames operating in a bearish setting. So right now, the time frames are stacked more for the bears. So we have a little bit more of a bearish bias overall. But the truth is that this particular bullish area down here is important to this market. In other words, it's kind of a critical idea to be holding up. So what we have is, as a result, dissonance, right? Now, the dissonance is probably the easiest to rank and distill in this particular zone here, because in this particular zone, it's multiple bearish ideas down into this area, this line in the sand here, and down here it's only one bullish idea, right? So it's not like it's that complicated. So the confluence, like I said, is more to the bearish side of things if the line in the sand here holds. And that's kind of where the scenarios will start to play out for today. So this is really our main line in the sand overall in today's session. And what we're seeing there is scenario one would be a hold of that area and a possible, inflection to the downside. And the scenario one main target kind of is this little neutral reference here. It's dynamic, it moves. So I tried to give it a little bit of wiggle room there with the morning and so forth, but it could migrate up a little bit, it could migrate down a little bit, but it could pretty much fall in this zone overall. So that's the target area for scenario one. If you get below that neutral zone and you come back into the bullish area here, the idea is that we look to hold this zone here and kind of come back out as a bullish line in the sand. But this really is that main target into scenario one with that inflection for that line in the sand holding. Now, if we don't get that hold, we end up seeing this market do something like this. This is the main target for scenario two, which scenario two would be a break up of this line in the sand, this bearish line in the sand area. And if we do get up into here, things get more dissonant. And the reason why is because we'd see another time frame shifting for the bulls, and then essentially we'd have a couple of time frames bearish, a couple of time frames bullish, and there'd be more dissonance up above. So this is kind of like the dissonance plus zone. This is just the dissonance normal zone. And that's kind of where we're at right now in this market and in this landscape. It's not an easy, straightforward context today. So if you are a Nadra trader and you're kind of prepping it today, it's tricky. And the main reason why is because this whole area, we don't have any real stacked references. We don't have a real stacked ideas or trade locations. So ultimately, the bears, kind of have control from multiple locations as we continue to look up in this market. And with that kind of being said, this particular area down here is creating a little bit of a problem for the Bears because it's not really open space at this point. In other words, this move coming down, this was an obvious bearish move according to our timeframes and our analysis because it was wide open space. Once you got into here and you started to hold this market, this became a little bit more of a bullish location in general, creating dissonance between the bears and the bulls. All right. So if you are a Nadra trader, you probably understand most of what I just broke down there for you. And hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight into the overall context and narrative. But to summarize, just for clarity's sake, more bearish than bullish overall because we have multiple time frames shifting for the bears. And in this particular location, that area is, or that particular context is more clear. And this is our main line in the sand for the session with that. And the scenario one is that continues, right? So the bearishness kind of continues at least into this area here. And then if that fails, scenario two, we get more dissonant because we start to see the bulls having a little bit more control on multiple time frames, not just one of them, heading back up into this area here, which would be the ultimate target for that as well. And this is a bearish idea as well up here. So, same expectations with any line in the sand in terms of the way the areas work. All right. So trade well out there, mind your risk, and have a wonderful trading day.